Thank you so much for coming today. I'm going to be very brief, and we have a lot of good content here today. We want to share with you our process on how do you craft a TED Talk. And a TED Talk is nothing more than an idea talk. It's a talk about a big idea, hopefully an idea that you're sharing for the first time, an idea that's both worthwhile and novel. But the key is to get inside people's hearts and to turn that idea into a story, whether it's by personalizing it or creating a 3-act structure and so forth. So in very little time today, we're going to rehearse 4 brave speakers who have come before you to rehearse their talks in front of a live audience. And there'll be a little bit of time for interaction from you. We wish there could be more, but because we're limited on time, there's a website you can go to submit your feedback about these 4 speakers. Okay, and at that website, you can give us feedback on this event, because this is our first open rehearsal, and you can give us feedback on the 4 speakers if you don't get a chance to have your voices heard today. We're really interested in the 1 or 2 things they could do to improve their talks. We're really interested in, did they get inside your heart, and did they tell you a story as well as give you an idea, okay? This is not the only open event we do besides the conference. We also host at Two River Theater salons before each of the plays that come out this spring. And there's ones coming up. They're on this little sheet here. So for the same price of the play, you also get dinner and an interesting TED Talk and salon where people can have a play and conversation. So that's another thing we wanted to make you aware of. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gail Woods, who's our speaker curation director and directs all these great speakers. And I hope you enjoy the open rehearsal. Please send your feedback. I'm going to write the URL on the website and leave it up to Gail.
Great, thank you, Brian. Let's clip this on. So I'm Gail Woods. I have the privilege of heading up the speaker curation team, which is really an honor, a lot of fun. I get to work with all these great folks here beside me. I'm so thrilled you're all here, and I really wanted to give you a big warm welcome tonight. So this is our very first open rehearsal. We host rehearsals every year for our speakers to prepare them in a closed private setting. So this is the first time we've opened it up, and we're thrilled that you're all here to share this experience with us. So I'm just going to spend 5 minutes talking about a little bit about who we are, our team. I'll also like to introduce you to some of the speakers that are here tonight. And then I'll end up with a few tips, our TED commandments, our top tips for a great talk. So what is it we do, our curation team? Well, I was thinking about it in relation to our theme, makers. And so we really are the content makers. We're making the content for the event. And I think when you think of it in that term, it really helps kind of see really what goes into thinking about the structure of the talks, identifying the topics, selecting the speakers, preparing the speakers. So our team works all year round. It's really a 12-month process from identifying, working out the theme, and then starting to figure out the topics we want to cover, reaching out to speakers, selecting speakers, and preparing them. So this is the part where, this is the really fun part. We get to curate the talks, work with the speakers on their messaging. So tonight we have the team here. I'd just like the curation team to wave, say hello. Anybody else? We have Mary here as well, Nancy, Jen. So it really takes a village. And they work tirelessly, so I wanted to really acknowledge their efforts. And in terms of speakers, I want to welcome Walter Greason well, he's from Monmouth, so we're thrilled to have him here. Yay. Eileen is here, Eileen Wang. We have, Eileen's not going to rehearse tonight, but she's come to hear the talks. We have Sarah Krug, who's a speaker from last year. She's on our team this year, and she's preparing to speak at TEDx Brussels. I see we have another speaker, Chris, right? Chris Dudek and Bernadette. So awesome to have you here. And did I miss anybody else? Okay. All right, so then I'll give you our top 5 TED commandments. So our team often get asked, what are our top tips, and what's different about a TEDx talk compared to another talk? So what we've come up with are our 5 tips, and I'll just go through them really quickly, and you'll hear more about them from Phil and MK and Vidar and Jamie. So our first one is no selling, absolutely no selling from the stage. It's not an opportunity to promote your business or raise money or talk about your nonprofit. So we really want to hear what's your idea worth spreading. The second tip we always give to our speakers is we ask them to really be vulnerable, willing to be vulnerable, authentic, and reveal their passion. And that's a great way to connect with your audience. We like speakers to be willing to tell a story. So to really package their idea in a story, it can be a personal story or a funny story, but storytelling is another great way to connect with your audience. Another tip that I've picked up from Vidar over the years is tell us why you care and tell us why we should care. And often it's easy to stand up and tell people about what you care about, but it's always a little more challenging to tell people why they should care. And finally, you're going to hear more about this from MK, is about the importance of preparing and rehearsing. And really, that is essential. We can't overemphasize that enough. So there are 5 top tips. I'm going to pass you over to Phil, who's coming next, and we hope you enjoy the night. Thank you.
Pin that on somehow. Everybody, my name is Phil Kuntz. I'm a journalist and one of the curators here. And I'm here to tell you about storytelling, or to talk to you about storytelling, because yes, we have these commandments and they have to be followed. TED has all these rules that they want you to follow. It can't be a polemic. A TED Talk can't be a polemic. You can't just say things without backing them up with real facts. And yes, there's got to be a big idea. And yes, there has to be all these other things. Keep those in mind and then throw them out. Because all it really is about is telling a cool story. Every person in this room has a TED Talk in them. Every single person. Madeline right there, a wonderful friend of one of our volunteers, wonderful daughter of one of our volunteers. She went to Haiti for a week, just for the heck of it, and worked at an orphanage. That's a TED Talk, right? We have, trying to think of who else. This guy, he does venture capital and private equity. So in addition to starting this TED thing and getting a bunch of people who he drives crazy year after year to volunteer ungodly amounts of time to do this. He's got a TED Talk in him. He could do something about private equity or venture capital. Everybody in this room has something. So what I always tell people is, if you have an interesting story in you, you can turn that into a TED Talk. And all it requires is a story. What does a story have? It's a chronological beginning, middle, and end. Yes, it has a big idea, but don't worry about what the big idea is too much while you're thinking about whether or not you have a TED Talk in you, because the big idea in the telling of the story, when you tell it to yourself, will emerge. One of the things that a thing I did to the other curation volunteers earlier this year was I said, something I used to do when I went on match dates, which were very, very frustrating, but they always came up with great stories to tell out of them. And one of the things I used to do is I would have a drink. I eventually married one of my match dates, so it did work eventually. Is I tell people, tell me your life story in the time it takes to finish the next drink. Now think about that. And what most people would do in response to that would say, well, I went to college. Whoa, 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 you went to college? You skipped the first 18 years. Where were you born? How many siblings do you have? So if you asked me, tell me your life story in the time it takes to finish the next drink, I'm not going to take that long. But I was born the seventh of 7 children, born in 8 years, to a mother who later then spent most of her life in and out of hospitals, most of my childhood in and out of hospitals. I ended up having to be in an orphanage for the first couple of years of my life. And then I grew up, and we had this very, very close-knit family, and I had this horrible thing I had to go through because my mother was always in the hospital, but I still feel like I had this wonderful, amazing childhood. because I had this loving family, my father, my mother, and my brothers and sisters, and we used to sled down the hill together, and we used to play tag. We had these epic games of capture the flag in my house, because when you have 7 kids in a huge house, you can play capture the flag for hours and hours and hours. And then I grew up, and 2 things were always clear in my house. One was that we would all go to college, and the other one was that my father wouldn't be able to pay for any of us, and so we'd have to take out student loans. So I took out student loans. I went to college. I came here for 2 years, dropped out because I ran out of money. So then my father ended up buying a house in Florida. I moved down to Florida to be in that house where he was going to retire eventually, but he told us all, hey, I can't really pay for your college, but I'm going to buy this house before I retire, and any of you guys that haven't finished college yet, and by the way, you're all going to finish college, can go down there to live. So me and 2 of my siblings went down there to live as adults, which was kind of a challenging thing. And then I graduated as a journalism major. I got a job at the Miami Herald. I moved up to Washington, got a job at Congressional Quarterly, got a job at the Wall Street Journal, moved up to New York, and now I work for Bloomberg News. And then I came here to talk to you. That's my life story. And in there is any number of TED Talks because I had all these life experiences, right? I could tell a TED Talk about my grandfather. He invented the telephone booth. I'm not lying. My grandfather invented the telephone booth. And before you think that that's really cool, just think somebody had to invent the telephone booth, right? So, the rules of the TED Talk are very important, what she said. You're not going to give a polemic, and you're going to have a big idea. But always remember, a TED Talk is more or less about you and something cool that you did or experienced or came up with. And if you just keep that in mind, the big idea will emerge. The other thing that I tell people is they frequently get like kind of nervous about by the theme of the TED Talk of the day. Makers was one, we had play, we had accelerators. And what I always tell people is don't worry so much about that. It's an artifice. We can make your talk fit. If you have a cool story, I can make it into a maker story, or I can make it into an accelerator story or a play story. It all works. So don't worry about it. Just remember, there's 3 things you need for a talk, and that's what I'm going to leave you with. A beginning, a middle, and an end. Chronological, if possible. Thank you. And now we're going to go to, I'm sorry, who's next? Vidar, who's going to talk to you about the images you need for a talk, because a talk is about more than talks. It's about images as well.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, guys. A lot of people, when they think about doing a presentation, they fire up PowerPoint. And they think like, okay, here's how I'm going to present this. That's the last thing you want to do when you're doing a TED Talk. It's all about you and your story. And presentations, they have a tendency to draw attention away from you and to whatever you're presenting behind you. You're the hero, you're the focus, and when you start putting up words behind you, they often become more important than you are, than the story that you're trying to tell. So use a presentation only when it's absolutely necessary. If there is some kind of visual that is so dramatic that it adds to your story, it could be a statistic which is hard to talk about. It could be an image which is hard to describe. And go for the dramatic, right? So if you're showing photos, show a close-up of something and blow it up behind you. Or show something that is extreme wide angle. If it's not dramatic, it's not going to have an effect of enhancing your story. At the same time, if you are using words, don't use words that you're going to say. There's no point of repeating what's on the presentation. You're not reading off a slide deck. Use words only to create a theme, to create a chapter in what you're talking about, to help the listener anchor your talk in something as a visual reminder of what you're talking about. Also, don't use a lot of words. Use a maximum of 6 words per slide. If you can't say something in 6 words, nobody in the back of the room is going to see what it says on the presentation, and it's a waste. Think in headlines. Use black slides or blank slides as much as you can. It's not important to have something behind you all the time. Just introduce a visual or a word at strategic points of your talk. And also, find ways to use black background and light text, because When you are on a stage and you have a huge screen behind you, the last thing you want is a big white glowing thing that is blinding people while you're standing in front of it. It's a lot more dramatic when you're standing on the black TED stage that you have words that just appear behind you on a black background. That's basically it. It's a TED Talk, not a TED presentation. Make it about you and not whatever you're showing behind you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Before I talk, I have a question. How many here absolutely love to get up and speak in public? Raise your hand. You love it? Mr. Lucky loves it. Brian? Anybody else? Okay, who here is okay with it? You'll do it if you have to. Who's okay with it? Okay, I'm okay with it. Who here dreads it? Horrible. Okay, good. Some of you are lying, I can tell. All right, so I'm here to talk about rehearsing, also known as practice, the opposite of coming up with things on your feet, the opposite of being spontaneous, off the cuff. You get what I'm saying. All those things are great if you can do them, but we're talking about practice tonight. Rudy Giuliani tells a story about public speaking. He talks about this firefighter who rushes into burning buildings and saves a lot of people's lives. Well, it comes time for this firefighter to receive an award, and he is terrified to go just say a few words of thanks to the crowd. So the question is, why is the firefighter okay with running into burning buildings, and he's horrified to say a few words to the crowd? Come on, anybody have the answer?
Because one is practiced, it's a response. The other one, he hasn't done.
Very smart, very smart. Okay. The answer was practice. He's used to it. It's second nature to him. So in the next 2 minutes, my objective here is to get you to practice. And that means if you have a speech or a talk or an interview, just start writing things down, start saying them out loud, and get your thoughts gathered. Repeat them, small consecutive steps, and record them if you have to. Now, there's a little bit more than just that going into a talk. There is body language, there's entrances and exits, there's tonality, there's rate of speed, all of those things, and they're all really important. But the thing is, when you've put the time in to rehearse, you're going to sense freedom. And part of it is freedom from the fear of public speaking, and it's also a freedom that speakers get that when they go out, and Ted calls this taking the audience on the journey with you, okay? And that is when you're in your space and you're giving the audience the gift of your conviction. And they're there and they're receiving it and they've escaped for a little bit with you. And I've seen it before with speakers, and it's a great thing. I saw it last year at TEDx Navasink with a few of our speakers. They're on the stage, they're in the zone, and they're sharing their message, and they're really enjoying all the hard work that they put into their talk, and it's a great place to be. Another thing about rehearsing is that you look out into the audience and they're not a battleground. They're there to learn something from you. There's always going to be some critical people in every audience, okay? And there may be some people in the audience that know a little bit more about your topic than you do too. But here's the thing, you are the expert on you, and you're the expert on your story. So tell that story. Another great thing about rehearsal is those things that happen, like a slide not working, or a guy in the back row having a coughing fit, or your ex-girlfriend showing up in the third row, anything like that. It's not going to throw you off as much because you've put the time in and you've rehearsed. And finally, when you've rehearsed, you know you've done your best work. And hopefully your best work is going to be an idea worth spreading. That's it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Cecil Turner, and I'm excited to be here with you tonight, too. What a great team we have. They stole half of what I was going to say, so that's the problem when you go last, but I'll try and fill in a little bit here. I'd like you to imagine for a minute that you are about to give a talk. And before you get up on the stage, you're sitting there with a group of your friends, and not one person tells you that you have spinach stuck in your teeth. Today and tonight is about not letting that happen for our speakers. And I'm not just talking about spinach. Tonight is about giving feedback to our speakers so that they can give the best talk of their lives. And this is the perfect time to be giving them feedback because they've written out their talk, they've thought about it deeply, they have lots of ideas, and it's not in cement yet. Because you don't want to find out that you have spinach in your teeth after you give the talk. You want to find out before. So tonight is perfectly timed for our curation team and for all of you to weigh in and let us know, let our speakers know how you perceive their talk. And every one of us has a different opinion because we're all different people. And that's great. I think the challenge for our speakers is to take what works for them and not feel overwhelmed by all the different kinds of opinions they might be getting. So what I've told the speakers I'm working with is it's their talk. So I want to remind the speakers tonight, you're going to hear feedback. Be open to the feedback. Say thank you, let it in, and remember that this is your talk. And we are only doing our best job of letting you know from what we've learned about what it takes to give a good TED Talk. There are a lot of great books. How many of you read some of those books about how to give a TED Talk? If you haven't, check them out on Amazon. There's some great resources out there. I don't know about you, but I watch TED Talks like all the time. And I know sometimes I have things I would say to those speakers, things that I like and things that I think they could be doing differently. So there are a few things we want to keep in mind tonight to help our speakers be able to hear the feedback that we have to give, because it's not always easy for any of us in life to hear feedback that's critical. The first thing we want to do is start with some compliments and give them some positive feedback and tell them what they did in their talk that landed well, that resonated with the audience, that helped us really feel connected to them. Another thing that we want to do tonight is be specific, and this is for all of you who are going to be giving us feedback online as well, is to be specific when we give feedback. So it's not helpful if someone says to you, oh, you look great tonight. I mean, it's nice to hear that when someone says you look great tonight, but it's even better when someone can say you look great tonight because I really like the pop of color of your scarf. Someone said that to me tonight, right? So you want to make that feedback specific. So you want to say, wow, the middle of your talk, and even if you're giving difficult feedback, the middle of your talk, it got kind of a little confusing there. I think maybe a transition from the first part to the second part will help make it more clear. So let the speaker know where you might have gotten a little lost or what wasn't clear for you, and be specific about that, which will really help them. The things we want to focus on are the three main categories that make a great TED Talk, and that would be the powerful big idea, and really let the speakers know, do you get what that powerful idea is? Because I'll tell you, sometimes you write a talk and you think that you think you're being clear about that, and it gets lost. So make sure that you let the speakers know if that idea is really clear. And then the clarity piece, how are they communicating the different ideas that they're letting you know? Do you understand everything that they're saying? Or sometimes they might be so expert in their topic that they're explaining it and forgetting that you don't know all the stuff that they know. So make sure that their idea is clear. Clarity is really important. And then the last thing that you want to let them know is, do you connect with them as a speaker? Does their story bring you in and help you feel engaged with them as a speaker? So make sure you let them know that. The last thing that I want to say is in giving feedback, and this is for our lives as well as it is for here tonight in giving a TED Talk, is to be sure that we're giving it with the right intention. So our intention tonight is to support our speakers and help them raise their talk from wherever it is now to a little bit higher. And so we're not giving feedback, which I know some people can get caught up in, to show how smart they are or how much they know. That is not what we're about tonight. We're about helping our speakers to feel safe and valued and appreciated, and to give them feedback from our hearts with the best intentions and with a really nice, caring, even tone to take their talk to the next level from wherever it is tonight. And so the speakers, we're just about to get started with that part of our program. Smile to the person next to you so they can see if you have any spinach in your teeth. And we will be prepared to help you with the rest of your feedbacks.